How do scientists organize millions of different organisms into meaningful groups? Let's make diversity and classification easy in just 10 minutes.
Welcome to Teaching Science. Have you ever wondered how we can possibly study millions of different organisms without getting completely lost? Today, we are going to understand this entire chapter step by step so that you don't just memorize it, you actually understand it. Just think about the incredible variety of life forms on our planet. We're talking about everything from microscopic algae floating around in the oceans to massive elephants wandering through the forests. This immense, mind-boggling variety is what we call biodiversity. And you know, every single organism plays a super specific role in keeping nature stable. But to study such a massive, delicate web of millions of species, scientists really need a systematic framework. We have to group them based on their similarities and differences so we can actually figure out their evolutionary relationships. This whole scientific grouping process, that's what we call classification. So here's our roadmap for mastering this chapter today. We're going to cover the classification basis, the evolution of systems, the 5 kingdoms, plant evolution, animal complexity, and finally, hierarchy and naming. Let's dive right into Section 1, classification basis. This is our foundational blueprint. So what exactly do we look for when we're trying to decide if 2 organisms belong in the same group? Well, scientists cast a really broad net. We don't just look at where an animal lives. We're looking for deep, fundamental similarities. We examine their cell structure, like are they single-celled or multi-celled? We look at their mode of nutrition. Do they make their own food or do they depend on others? We also check their overall level of organization, internal structures like skeletons, their ecological role, and these days, even their genetic DNA similarity. Now, let's test this logic with a really important NCERT conceptual question. Why is cellular organization considered a much more fundamental characteristic for classification than the presence of vascular tissues, like xylem and phloem? Think about it for a second. Okay, let's check your answer. The logic here is that a really good classifying feature has to work like a massive wide net. Cellular organization, whether a cell has a true nucleus or not, is literally a universal feature. It applies to every single organism on Earth, from a tiny bacterium to a massive blue whale. It gives us a super reliable, deep first split. Xylem and phloem, on the other hand, well, they're highly specific structures that only exist in some advanced plants, so we always want to use the widest neck first. Moving right along to Section 2, evolution of systems. Because science is always updating. Science definitely isn't static. It improves as our technology gets better. Thousands of years ago, Aristotle kind of just grouped animals by their habitat, land, water, or air. But honestly, that was super confusing. I mean, a bird and a butterfly both fly, but they are entirely different creatures. Later on, Carolus Linnaeus gave us the 2-kingdom system, plants and animals. But then where do you put an amoeba? It moves around like an animal, but it's a single microscopic cell. As microscopes got better, scientists discovered that some cells completely lacked a true nucleus, which led to the creation of Monera. And finally, because fungi absorb dead matter instead of doing photosynthesis, Robert H. Whittaker proposed the ultimate 5-kingdom classification in 1969. Which brings us nicely to Section 3, the 5-kingdom system. This is how we organize all that crazy variety. This is it, the ultimate framework that organizes life's complexity. Let's visualize Whittaker's brilliantly structured flowchart. He basically asks a series of fundamental questions. First up, what is the cell type? If it lacks a true nucleus, it's a prokaryote, which gives us kingdom Monera. If it does have a true nucleus, it's a eukaryote. Next question, is it unicellular or multicellular? The unicellular eukaryotes become kingdom Protista. For the multicellular ones, we have to ask, do they have a cell wall? If the answer is no, they belong to kingdom Animalia. If yes, we ask one final question. Can they perform photosynthesis? If no, they're fungi. If yes, they're Plantae. It's like a giant sorting game. Let's do a quick comparison of these 5 kingdoms. Monera contains unicellular prokaryotes, like bacteria. Protista holds unicellular eukaryotes, like our friend the amoeba. Now, fungi are multicellular, eukaryotic, and strictly heterotrophs, meaning they survive by absorbing dead and decaying matter. That is exactly why they got separated from plants. Plantae are multicellular, eukaryotic autotrophs that make their own food through photosynthesis. And finally, Animalia consists of multicellular, eukaryotic heterotrophs that don't have a cell wall. All right, Section 4, Plant Kingdom. Let's look at their evolutionary steps to conquer the land. We aren't just going to rate a boring list of names here. We are going to frame plant classification as an epic evolutionary quest to conquer dry land. Step 1 is Thallophyta, or simple algae. They live entirely in water and have a totally undifferentiated body. Step 2 is Bryophyta, like mosses. We call these the amphibians of the plant kingdom because they took the very first steps onto land, but they still strictly need water to reproduce. Step 3 is Peridophyta, like ferns. They actually evolved true roots and a transport system. Hello, xylem and phloem. Step 4 is gymnosperms, like pine trees. They finally evolved seeds so they could reproduce without water, but the seeds are naked, usually just sitting right there on cones. And step 5, the ultimate adaptation, angiosperms. They evolved beautiful flowers to attract pollinators, and they enclose their seeds safely inside fruits.
Before we move on, let's clear up a really common confusion. Plants are broadly divided into two major reproductive groups. Cryptogamy comes from Greek words that mean hidden reproduction. These are your seedless, spore-producing plants, the thallophytes, bryophytes, and pteridophytes. On the flip side, we have phanerogamy, which means visible reproduction. These plants possess well-differentiated reproductive tissues and actually produce seeds. So this includes both the gymnosperms and the angiosperms. Simple, right?
Now let's shift gears to Section 5, Animal Kingdom, and its increasing complexity.
Just like plants, the animal kingdom is this fascinating journey of increasing complexity. The most massive split in the entire animal kingdom revolves around just one structure, the notochord. A notochord is a flexible, rod-like internal support structure. Animals that completely lack this notochord are called invertebrates. Animals that possess this notochord at some stage of their life, which eventually develops into a backbone in higher forms, are called vertebrates.
Looking across the invertebrates is honestly like watching a video game character get survival upgrades. We start with Porifera, the sponges, which are really just fixed bodies with cellular pores. Then Cnidaria, like jellyfish, upgrade to true tissues and tentacles. Platyhelminthes and Nematoda upgrade to organ systems and bilateral symmetry. Annelida, like earthworms, add body segments for way better movement. Arthropoda, which is the largest group containing all the insects, massively upgrade with jointed legs and a tough exoskeleton. Mollusca get soft bodies that are mostly protected by shells. And Echinodermata, like the starfish, upgrade to a spiny skin with an internal skeleton made of calcium carbonate.
Finally, Section 6, Hierarchy and Binomial Naming. Let's see how we organize all this biodiversity.
So we've seen all this incredible diversity, but how do we accurately talk about it without getting completely mixed up? Well, classification is strictly hierarchical. It starts super broad at the kingdom level, and then funnels down through phylum, or division if we're talking about plants, then class, order, family, genus, and finally, species. The absolutely crucial point here is that as you move down from kingdom to species, the organisms share more and more specific common features. A species is the most specific level, containing organisms that can actually interbreed with each other.
Imagine the sheer chaos if scientists from India, Japan, and France all tried to talk about a tiger using their own local languages. No one would know what the others were talking about. To solve this, Carolus Linnaeus gave us binomial nomenclature. This brilliantly illustrates how a universal scientific language works. Every identified organism gets a two-part scientific name, its genus, followed immediately by its species. Okay, here is a quick, highly practical exam tip so you absolutely never lose marks on this. There are strict rules for writing these names. Let's look at the tiger, Panthera tigris. The genus name, Panthera, must start with a capital letter. The species name, Tigris, must start with a lowercase letter. If you are typing it out or it's in print, it has to be in italics. But if you are writing it by hand, in your exam, you must underline both words separately. Don't forget that. And you might be asking, how do we know all these evolutionary steps from simple to complex actually happened? Well, we look at fossils. Preserved remains in ancient rock layers provide the direct physical proof of evolution. Older, deeper rocks contain simpler organisms, while the newer, shallower rocks contain complex ones. The eminent Indian scientist Birbal Sahani actually dedicated his entire life to studying fossil plants, helping us directly connect the present-day biodiversity we see around us to its ancient ancestral roots. Okay, it is time for a high-energy, one-minute recap of your core NCERT takeaways. Classification organizes Earth's massive biodiversity based on fundamental traits like cellular structure and nutrition. Robert Whitaker gave us the five-kingdom system: Monera, Protista, Fungi, Plantae, and Animalia. We learned that plants underwent an epic evolutionary journey from simple water-bound algae to complex fruit-bearing angiosperms just to conquer the land. Animals evolved from simple pore-bearing sponges all the way to highly complex vertebrates with backbones. And finally, Carlos Linnaeus gave us binomial nomenclature, which is a universal two-part naming system to keep all of this science perfectly organized. I want to leave you with this final, kind of provocative thought. Classification systems always change as our technology improves. With today's massive advances in DNA and genetic studies, how might our current classification system change entirely in the next 100 years? That's all for today. Keep revising, and for more easy science explainers, subscribe to Teaching Science. If you found this explainer helpful, like it and hit the bell icon for notifications about new explainers. See you in the next chapter.